be talking about chapter 15, which is called Forlorn. And okay, musically, I wanted this to be just heavy and dark. That was the whole thing with this song. It had to be super heavy, super dark, because it's a pretty dark song. Um, Honestly, when it comes to the lyrics of this song, I kind of wish now that I had held off on it to, you know, spoiler alert, the next album. I think it would have fit better um, with something else entirely replacing this song. But at the time, I didn't have plans on going any further after chapter 20. So I threw it in here because it seemed to fit where, yeah, it just, I don't know what else to say other than it just seemed to fit at the time. Um, so yeah, musically super heavy. Um, and one of the like cool little facts of it, just off the top of my head. So like in I, I mean, this is kind of like prog metal. I mean, not like prog metal, like Dream Theater, but I say prog in the sense that there is not any like typical structure to the songs. Um, and it's that way for a lot of the songs on this album. And I think this one is definitely a good example because I grew up with, prog rock, listening to different bands like Yes and Rush and stuff like that. Um, and then going into metal, post hardcore, um, Between the Buried and Me it was a huge influence. Um, I mean, yeah, just a lot of different stuff that when I say prog, a lot of times it's like the songs have movements much like classical music, but there's not like the typical Western, pop music uh, formula to it, if you will, of say chorus, bridge, verse, bridge, chorus, etc., etc. It's like a lot of that kind of music is like this might be a verse, but it really isn't because it just goes from one part to the next to the next to the next. Um, and I kind of like doing stuff like that. And I mean, there's like the opening intro riff or whatever is kind of repeated at the end, but a lot of the other stuff there's just no repetition of it, and so being kind of proggy. Um, but anyway, the after like the intro riff, there's this heavy section that has this like really creepy, echoey guitar sound in the background. And story of that is like I literally came up with that guitar part um, when I was like 16 years old. Um, yeah, that I came up with this guitar part like 20 years ago. Um, and it's like super simple. It's not even notes really. It's just, well, I can't give away all my secrets. All I can say is I can only do it on one of my guitars um, because of just the way it's set up. And it's distortion and like a slap echo effect on it. And that's all you're going to get when it comes to how that sound is created. But super simple to do, but I just like it. And a, I literally kind of wrote um, that like whole section of the song just so I could put that, you know, really creepy guitar part in the background. Um, like I wrote all of that around that part because, you know, it's like 20 years old sort of thing. And yeah, I thought it was cool. But other than that, yeah, the music is heavy, gets really kind of down tempo, softer, but like super creepy in the middle of the song, and then gets heavy again. And I kind of like that structure, if you will. Of yeah, I kind of see it as like almost like male ADD or something. Like I don't want to just do the same thing over and over and over again in most cases. Like I want there to be changes and different tones, but like the whole thing to fit together somehow in cohesion, whether that is like it's in the same key or not. Like it just has to be some sort of cohesion to it. That's the only way I can describe that. Um, so what is literally going on in the story of this song, like after chapter 14, um, I guess like the end of 14, he was in the like village court and he was, you know, sentenced to like imprisonment, banishment, you know. And so at this point, he's not like in his final cell or anything like that, but he's being held, um, like he's already been sentenced, but essentially he's being abused and tortured by these like villagers. And the implication too is that the soldiers, um, the the army that he once was a part of, have reached this village and, unknown to him, have kind of like taken over. That this village is now part of, it's a municipality, if you will, within this kingdom that he had left at the beginning, you know, and was a part of. And so, yeah, the simplest thing of this song is it's just about him being tortured and him feeling forlorn. Um, so the if you want to call it a chorus or whatever, refrain, just this repetitious phrase that is stated throughout the song is, all that's here is the forlornness of God. And I came up with that line um, because of Norma Jean, the band, famous metalcore band Norma Jean. Um, Back at that time when I wrote this song, their album Polar Similar was still fairly new, and you know I went, bought it, and listened to the opening track, which is called "One the Planet," and like, oh man, that song is brutal. Like pretty simple, but just brutal. And one of, if you want to call it the chorus of that song, he says, "What you're feeling now is the loneliness of God," and like lyrically, there's really only two lines in the entire song, and he kind of repeats it a couple of times, you know, verse and then this kind of chorus thing. But excuse me, um, just the way that song is delivered, I was like, yes, like I want to do something similar to that. call it paying homage or whatever. I just something about that line, what you're feeling is the loneliness of God, just really hit me hard back at that time, especially like dealing with, the woman I wanted to marry and dealing with my mentor, dying, slowly kind of fading away from, her cancer. And I just wrote this line because, you know, it kind of felt like a forlorn period. And at least in my mind, it did at the time. Um, Only got worse, but that's for much, much later. But I needed a, like lyrically, a song to um, kind of transition from, the prison or the trial and being captured in chapter 14, and then going into chapter 16 and beyond. I needed something dark. I just wanted something dark. So um, that's really where this song came in. And like I said, I would, if I could go back now, I would use these lyrics for, you know, later on, but it just seemed to make sense at the time. And I just accept that. Um, so the like first lines say, a prisoner of war, tortured with no kindness nor empathy, given only hate speech, double speak, inquisition, and treachery. And like he then says, how long is it being curled up, fetal, sunlight absent, a Stygian corner of a feculent dungeon? So like he's kind of like in this dirty, dark dungeon, um, kind of thing. Was the image that I kind of got in my head, that um, he's been stripped bare and just he's been abused. And I mean, I definitely haven't had that sort of thing happen to me. So, like once again, as I mentioned early on, is it okay for me to, write something like this? And I don't know, but, that's the thing with art is, hyperbole and just symbolism. Because, when I wrote this, I think there was metaphorical, allegorical, um, just, I guess, the personal meaning being just feeling out of control, feeling like I had been put in a position that I didn't have any control over. And it seemed to me that most people didn't seem to care. And even that in itself was kind of like the torture that I think a lot of times in life we look to other people around us when we're, going through like the darkest times in our life. And it's like we look to them and it's like, I don't know how to explain it, but you kind of think, okay, this person, all they have to do is say the right thing, say what I need to hear, whether it's, positive or negative, but, it's like they hold the keys to my freedom. Whether that's true or not, it doesn't matter. I mean, maybe it is only perception, but I do think because it's something that like the song deals with kind of later on is just yeah realizing that an institution, a church, a group of people, all it would take is them to like truly care and go out on a limb to put themselves out there, and it's like that itself could set you free from that darkness and that pain that you're dealing with. But it's like nobody seems to notice, and sometimes maybe they don't even care. um, it seemed to me at times in dealing with that period of my life that some of my like Christian friends, just sort of thought that I was full of shit, and at least that was my perception, that they thought that I was full of shit and perhaps even deserved some of the misery that I was dealing with and the depression and just things being bad at that time, when I was dealing with just a lot of stress and seeing a lot of things that I loved and cared for kind of falling apart around me. Um, and it was just loneliness and feeling forlorn. And I don't know how to explain it better than that. That was just kind of going through my mind, even though at that time it was hyperbole, honestly. Things got much worse later, like once my mentor was gone and everything, like things got really dark. And so, like, in my mind, yeah, this song would have fit better later on, but I don't know, maybe that was sort of prophetic in some kind of sense, that it was almost like this song became a prediction of how bad things were going to get later on when she was gone. So I guess like this song sort of changed in tone and meaning for me personally, um, after all that went down, which was months and months after I had written the lyrics to this song. But one of the things it says too is like when generals, bourgeois, big brothers, and townsmen enter, fists beat my temples and tongues percuss my ears. So like all these people from past chapters find out that like he's in this prison, and they come for him and just abuse him and then quickly leave. They just, I guess, like their sick and twisted sense of justice. Um, and so he feels forlorn. Um, and then it says, turn her, um, and that being Aurora, the character of Aurora, into a whore, or use as a recruitment banner matters not, only that she becomes the tool to bend civilization to a desired fascist state. And if I could go back, I would change the word fascist, because today, and it has this like specific connotation, especially among the left. Um, and that wasn't exactly what I meant at the time. It's more of just lines of tyranny in general. But I mean, fascism definitely has that tyranny going for it, even though it's supposed to be, ultra right, it's just kind of always been strange to me that, Nazism is considered, fascism, yet, it's the National Socialist, yada, yada, yada. And I don't know, I find that really strange. But yeah, I would change that to mean tyranny. But at the time, I wrote fascist state, and that's talking about, this heavy fascism that he sees in this village and in this civilization that's all around him. And Aurora is mentioned as her in this because he realizes, despite getting beat down, that all all these people want to do is either turn her into a whore, um, or yeah, just use her as a tool to like recruit other soldiers to fight this culture war. And I mean that's definitely me taking a swing at like the far right evangelicalism that I grew up around and heard about, and going back into the whole culture war thing. It's just strange to me now because that still goes on, obviously, but I find that a lot of those in the Christian, like far left, do the exact same things, just in kind of an opposite way. And so it's just me making, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, I don't even know what word I'm looking for right now, but that's just kind of how I see things with how people want to use the church, use something that is beautiful and special, and use it for their own sociological ends and political ends. And like, I'm not about it. Um, that sort of thing bothers me. So he says, he's prostrate across the threshing floor. Excuse me. Um, and there's like dim fluorescence, and it appears to him like it's phosphorescent, and he's just become isolated also, um, after the fact. They beat him down or whatever, and then they've isolated him, so that isolation becomes more of a torture technique than like physical violence to him because of the loneliness. And he recognizes that God is ever present even among that suffering. Um, Yet he does like that. That's more something like he knows intellectually, but when it comes to like that present moment of isolation and being beat down, he doesn't sense any love of God or anything like that. All that he senses is just a feeling of forlornness. And in really, I mean, that this song is just as simple as that. It's dark, it's heavy, and I mean, I think a lot of people out there can identify with it. In a lot of ways, I think this song can be like the most subjective because, you know, being a big Norma Jean fan, um, I know from reading interviews and stuff like that that their vocalist and lyricist Corey Brandon um, tries to purposefully make his lyrics as vague as possible, just so that it can be interpreted however it needs to be interpreted by the listener. And so, like, out of all the songs on this album, I think this one is the one that kind of has that same sort of um, aesthetic to it, that, like, whatever the listener, you listening to this right now, or dealing with in your life, that is just dark times, everything's messed up, and you just feel tortured. Like, doesn't matter what the exact situation is, like, this song was kind of designed to just put words and put emotion and feeling to that, you know, that state, that, yeah, existential state or whatever, of just feeling forlorn and feeling abused, and everything. And it could be emotionally, spiritually, physically, even, like all of the above is kind of what this song was.